Welcome! In this video today I'm going to show the full fellowship made by ASMUS Collectibles in 1/6 scale from Lord of the Rings. This is a video I've wanted to do for quite some time because I have many figures from ASMUS in the 1/6 scale Lord of the Rings line. I wanted to get just the fellowship together to show you guys which versions I chose to go with my fellowship and how they come together as a fellowship and why I chose those particular figures, and show some of the accomplishments of these figures themselves, like some of the little details. I just want to say before I start, this video is not a video where I want people to just click on it and basically complain that they like the inart versions of certain figures better. Inart is a separate company, it's a separate thing. This video is all about ASMUS and what a very small company has managed to accomplish, and if you're an ASMUS collector, what kind of figures are available to you to choose from to fulfill your fellowship. So with that said, let's get started. We'll jump in a little closer and take a look at some of the figures. So I figure we'll go from left to right and start with Boromir. This is the most recent version of Boromir from ASMUS, and there's been various different head sculpts. One of them even has rooted hair, but this is the one that I thought looked the most like Sean Bean. And it's worth mentioning that I'm also doing some showcase videos on each of the fellowship, and all of the other characters I'm going to do some figure talk videos on eventually. So it's worth tuning into the channel or checking out the whole collection video if you haven't seen these before. But look at the tailoring on these figures, it's amazing. And I love how the newer figures, if you look at the belts, they're no longer pleather. They've done this soft plastic, which works so much better and doesn't degrade. And if you've never seen any of these ASMUS figures before, they most of the time, especially all of the new ones, have die-cast weapons, so that's worth taking a look at as well. So if I can just get around there, yeah, you can see his die-cast sword there. So yeah, Boromir surprised me. I thought this was... I wasn't sure how good it was going to be, but then when I got it in hand, looked at some of the details, just kind of blew me away. But definitely just an amazing figure. Moving over to Merry. This is the first version of Merry. They did 2 versions, I think, of Merry and Pippin. They sold them together as like a multi-pack. Sorry, you can't really see his legs because of all the other figures and the little thing I've got him on, which you can see in some of other videos of mine. But yeah, I thought this one had the best likeness, which is why I chose it for my 1/6 scale ASMUS collection. Because the other figure they did after this, I guess you'd call it like a reply to the fans, was because the fans weren't happy with the Merry and Pippin head sculpts. So they did the Merry and Pippin again. So these are the original Merry and Pippin, and I prefer them. I think the ones they did after this, to me, looked kind of chubby and just didn't look like the actors, but I really like these ones. And I love the clothing on Pippin. Pippin's one of my favorite characters, and I was not disappointed when I got this figure. So yeah, between the Merry and Pippin, I thought... can see them both there. It's hard to focus on both. I thought they were both great figures, and they really nicely represented. You'll notice that they also have the fellowship cloaks on, and I'll get into the cloaks later. So this is the newest version of Frodo, but he's wearing the fellowship cloak from the very first version. And it's just worth noting that if you pick up a Frodo, the very first version has a plastic sting, and the new one has a metal one. And if you look over at Sam's feet, you can see the older versions have a lot more fur on their feet, and then this is a newer version of Frodo. But these two, I think, work really well together. And this is the very first version of Sam. But the second version, again, was like a kind of letter to the fans concerning the head sculpt, and I didn't like the second version, so I chose this one to go with the new version of Frodo. But I kept the cape from the very first version of Frodo so that they all match, because if you look at them together, they've all got matching Fellowship cloaks, all of the hobbits. And you can see videos that I've done and some that are coming out on some of these figures on my channel. I recently put one out about Sam because I think this head sculpt is amazing. If you look closely, you can see so many tiny little details in the face. Moving on to Gandalf. This is the newest version of Gandalf, but it's got the hat from the old version. The new version is a sculpted hat, and I loved this material hat. So let's just zoom out a little bit there. I really, really loved this material hat for Gandalf, and I didn't want to get rid of it. I mean, I like the new sculpted hat, but this one just works so much nicer with him, in my opinion. The previous head sculpt of Gandalf, I didn't think particularly looked like the actor, Ian McKellen, but this one I think is spot on. This is really, 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 really good. And so mixed with that hat, I think this is an excellent figure. And it's just worth noting that I bought the head sculpt separately to go on the previous version, but the previous version was identical apart from the head sculpt. But when you get the head sculpt separately, it comes in like this plastic, which straightens out the hair and flattens it like that. And it's a bit more wavy and curly if you get it, you know, as a full set. I really love his little staff. He comes with a couple of different staffs. Sorry, I'll just try and focus on that for you. Nope, it's not gonna focus. There you go. Comes with a couple of different staffs. But this is the one from Lord of the Rings. I think the other staff is from The Hobbit. Now, sorry about that. Moving on to Gimli. Wow. You've got to check out my my showcase video on Gimli if you're really interested in this figure. It goes into depth. Just looking at it physically is a really cool figure. My one issue is these boots. The top half of the split cut doesn't quite match. Other than that, this figure is just beautiful. It is really nice. Look at the die-cast axe, and he comes with like 5 axes, I think. But the beard, the way they've braided it, and the head sculpt is just the best part for me. You can remove the helmet. I don't think it looks as good without the helmet, to be honest, but you can remove it if you like. And again, he's got the Fellowship cloak, and these newer figures all have the Fellowship cloak. I'll show you on Boromir here. They all have this version of the Fellowship cloak with that material, the wired hood, and this tiny little leaf of Lorien brooch. But let's whip back over there. And you'll see on this version of Aragorn that he's wearing a newer version of the cape, but with the old leaf of Lorien. And this was given to me by ASMUS, not the figure, just the cape, because I wanted an updated cloak, because the old one didn't match the newer ones. But this figure, although it's not perfect, because the head sculpt isn't 100% likeness to Viggo Mortensen, which is very difficult to do. This figure is the... Oh God, trying to remember this is difficult. This is the slim version, which came with the rooted head sculpt. And it also has the newer cloak, which I got from ASMUS. And it also has, if I can just point my finger out, this backpack and the bow there. Those are from a different version of Aragorn that they did, which had a sort of sculpted head sculpt. I think it was the one that came with this base, which is an older version also. There's various different versions of Aragorn, but this was the slim sort of Strider version, just with the differences that I've just mentioned there. I don't think it's bad. This is the thing, is everybody's very torn with these head sculpts of Aragorn. I think it looks like the actor, but not quite. It's not quite there, but it's a good representation of the character. So that's my feelings on it. I know it's very divisive. You don't have to like it. I'm just showing you. That's what I thought was the best mix, the best version of the ASMUS figures in 1/6 scale. So then this comes to the newest version of Legolas. And Legolas, let's just come out a bit further, I think is a really, really nice figure. Got some great little details, great clothing work, split cut boot design, like even the details on the bow, and all of these little details here. Again with the soft plastic belts so that the pleather won't perish. And I think head sculpt wise, it's there, but he just looks a little bit too chubby, I want to say. I don't know, his face looks wider than I remember Orlando Bloom's face, but the likeness is definitely there in my opinion. And what's interesting in some of these figures from ASMUS is that they have plastic sculpted hair on the top here, but then it transitions into rooted hair. So if I can come a little bit closer there, you'll be able to see the top is sculpted and then the bottom is rooted. And they do that with a few different figures, usually the elves, because it works better for the actual figure. It's like they've said what works best for the figure, not what are people going to whinge about because they want fully rooted hair. So there you go. That is my collection, my fellowship from ASMUS. And these are the ones that I thought were the best versions that they have done of each character. And it's worth, if you want to collect these, it's worth looking into what you think are the best versions, because, for example, this Sam, the other version, the head sculpt looks so different, they look like different people. The version of Merry and Pippin, their head sculpts also look very different compared to these two. And also, with the new versions of Merry and Pippin, you won't get these fellowship cloaks. The new version of Frodo, you won't get a fellowship cloak. And also, going back over here, if you get this version, the rooted hair version of Aragorn, you won't get the fellowship cloak like this. You'll get one with the same Leaf of Lorien badge, but the cloak itself is a different material, doesn't sort of dress the same, and doesn't have the wired hood. So that's worth taking into account as well. Again, with the Gandalf, I think this is an excellent figure, especially for the price point. I think the head sculpt is wonderful. I'll just show you something actually before I finish. When I got this hat, the inside, sorry, let me focus. The inside had already been cut like that and pushed in. And I think a lot of people had done that, a lot of customers, because it just kind of like balanced on his head and looked silly. So I think ASMUS went around and did this themselves to their figures. So, if you want to take a look at the head sculpt there, without the hat. But it is magnetic as well, the hat. But yeah, so when I fit it onto his head, when I got it, it fit perfectly fine. There was no issues. I guess they sort of alleviated that concern from the fans. And they do listen to the fans a lot. So it's worth checking them out. They're a smaller company. You know, these figures are all in small quantities. Some of the Hobbits are only like 1,000 of them made. But I just wanted to share that with anyone who's collecting the line and we're wondering what kind of versions to look out for. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, comment, and all that jazz, and I'll see you again soon.